Okay, I'll just start now. So I just want to say hello everyone and thank you for attending today's session. Just to remind everyone before we start that we are recording these sessions, so if you would like to turn your camera off, then feel free. If you would like to keep it on, that's fine as well. I'm going to quickly introduce the CPD team just before I pass it on to Evie to talk about the APM PFQ course with you. So the CPD team sits within the Department for Business Innovation, providing professional services support to academic teams working with external partners. The CPD Centre encompasses project management, contract management, commercial negotiations, administration, and course and learning design. So we design and deliver both online and offline face-to-face short courses. A range of flexible short courses have been developed to support continuing professional development within the university and the workplace. And with our courses as well, we offer funding options for students to make it a little bit more affordable, which you'll find out more about as we talk about it. So I'm now going to pass on Evie just to talk about the PFQ course with you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you to the team. Before we start, the way that in face-to-face meetings we're talking about fire exits, I have my cat in the background, so any broken things, blame her. And hopefully, my postman will not come because everything happens when I'm online. So I'll share my screen and I have a short presentation. And usually I tell people I don't talk much, but then I kind of contradict that. So I'll try to give you an overview of what we're doing within the project management remit and more specific for the project fundamentals qualification. Let me know if you can see my screen.
Yep.
Fantastic. Thank you. I'll start from the current slide. Bear with my laptop. I think it's terminally ill and it's a little bit slow. There we go. Okay. Again, I'm Dr. Viza. I have a fancy acronyms. I earned them, so I use them as much as I can. And that's my tummy rumbling because I skipped breakfast. And I'll be covering the project management qualifications. So I know you got, that's the agenda for today. Because the CPD and UWS is so good, we talk about that twice. I'll introduce you to the project management team, just names and photos. I know we talk about project management a lot, but I thought it may be useful to have a baseline, so we'll talk some of the terms. What is project management, what's the difference between project and business as usual, and then the usually pitfalls. And I'm sure you will have plenty of experience and stories to share for later. And then we'll go over the Association of Project Management Project Fundamentals Qualification. And now you know why we call them with their acronyms. And last one, I have two screens and I cannot see over my laptop, that's why I'm stretching. It's the interesting part, it's about the funding and the costing for the course. So, as I said, I know you heard before, but because they're so good, I repeat it very, very quickly. The team that organized the session today, and we're working closely with academic teams across the university, they offer a variety of continuous professional development courses. Can be personalized, they can be online as now, shorter ones, longer ones, so it's like industry and people, they want to develop professionally, they're literally spoiled for choice. And you should know them, the website by now, because you probably booked through there. This is the University of West of Scotland project management team. You have to admire the gender split, it's 50-50, and that's very refreshing. So the team is Dr. Michelle Cano, which is the head of engineering and my line manager. My colleague, Dr. Adelaide Marzano, background on manufacturing engineering. Myself, all of us manufacturing engineering on the background. And we've got 3 new members of staff that have got fantastic expertise. Dr. Norjuana, we call her Anna. I think the expertise is artificial intelligence and sustainability. And Dr. Jaffer and Dr. Hazhar with background on construction and project management. So you are in good hands. Now, I thought, as I said earlier, we'll talk about the term project. The definition, as I copied from the body of knowledge from Association of Project Management, is stated as a unique, transient endeavors undertaking to bring about change and to achieve planned objectives, which can be defined in terms of outputs, outcomes, or benefits. And to put that in perspective, it's difference between what projects are and what business as usual. And if nothing else, the current situation that we live, and it's very challenging, it gives an understanding. Take, for example, NHS, they have the business as usual with the health services that provide, but then they had to take certain projects, the rolling out of the vaccination, the different measures that they had to deal with the current demands. So projects are unique and time bound, and you will know about the iron triangle, or you will find time, quality, and scope. And it's temporary in nature. So it can be installing a new software, changing a service. Business is something that it's ongoing and repetitive. The projects are predefined start and end points. They have these wonderful Gantt charts, which I like. I like Excel spreadsheets. Businesses usually there is no end point. For projects, most of the time there are temporary teams formed to meet project and skills requirements. So you can have either internal teams with people coming with different expertise from different departments, or certain times you can have external people coming to coordinate, or a mix and match. For business as usual, it's the teams are aligned with functional requirements. We've got the HR team, we've got the payroll team, we've got the administration team. For projects, there is a dedicated manager for the duration of the project, or if there are projects, we've got program managers. In the business as usual, it's a long-term formal manager, so it's the corporate governance, it's the managers of the different sections. Next one, the project manager may not have line management of the project team, and that is something that it links with many of the pitfalls you'll find in one of the next slides. So we can assign tasks, but we can, it's about communications and mentoring to convince the people to do this task, or to make that more easy to understand when you're dealing with contractors. In the businesses, usually the functional management has direct line management over staff. And the last one, as it mentions on the previous slide, the projects are to achieve objectives and creating outputs. In the business as usual, it's the purpose of the business. And what is interesting on the projects is the objectives or the benefits. They can mean different things to different people, because usually you have somebody that's funding the project sponsors, and they want certain things, but the service users may be different and maybe have different understanding of what they want. One of my previous students was doing his master's dissertation on the project management of music festivals, which was a very interesting topic. And Scotland has a fantastic, or had a fantastic landscape on that. So the project owners, they wanted the music festivals to run smoothly, to have the, the financial benefits, the entertainment benefits. For many of the festival goers, it was the chaos that was created during the music festivals that it wasn't something the project donors were very keen about. So it was kind of class of what each of these stakeholders group wanted. Actually, it was one of the reasons that made the music festivals numbers declined over the years. So the next term, it's project management. I could not have it since today it's all about project management. So the term, again, infringing the body of knowledge handbook, the application of processes, methods, knowledge, skills, and experience to achieve specific objectives for change. So we have a starting point and we have somewhere that we have to reach to achieve. And usually we have specific period to do that, specific budget, and we have this kind of the specific scope. The key purposes, enabler of change, a structured approach to change, ideally, so we know what we're doing and how we're doing it, an enabler of benefits. No project starts with, making things worse. Now, I wish we had more time to share your experience on the project management field. And I would be interested to know if you agree with the common mistakes in project management. First one is lack of senior management involvement. It's like when people say, yes, go and do that, but they don't actually. So true commitment to that. It's many cases, projects are like a tick box exercise. Then it's the poor requirements. When in the business planning stage, we do not really understand what resources we need, know how many stakeholders should be involved. And that brings us to the third one, which is unrealistic expectations. It's like somebody asking you to deliver something within a month or with a very limited project, because they're not aware of the ripple effect or how many teams or expertise are required. Fourth one is the scope creep. Business planning is the most important phase, but sometimes things happen, and what we're going through, it's a good example. So requirements change, capacity and demand, contractors' expertise, a lot of things can affect how the project, the scope changes over time. We do have risk management approaches to deal with that, but we cannot always predict everything. As humans, we make certain assumptions. Lack of user involvement. This is all about understanding which stakeholders they should be involved. We talked about project sponsors, the project team, but sometimes we overlook certain stakeholders. And then is this blessed communication skills. And the last one is inexperienced project manager. If people that start the career or they haven't been from different within a specific sector, they will not perhaps be aware of the things that they should look out for or how to deal with mentoring or budget changing. Now, that's the exciting part. The APM, which stands for Association of Project Management, it's in the national organization, and it's the only organization that actually provides charter status for project managers. And they have a series of qualifications. UWS was awarded accreditation test. Janet will keep me right on the terminology. We can offer the accredited exams. And the first one that we did, the project fundamentals qualification. This is SCQF level 6. You can, my ethnic minority status signs through when I pronounce certain words. And it offers a fundamental awareness of project management terminology. And you can see I didn't proofread, so this is how not to do the slides. Insert body text here. So you don't need a project management expertise on this stage. It's for the people that they wish to gain an understanding of the principles and the formal qualification without, for example, going a master's program, because we do run a master's and accredited APM accredited master's on project management. So more information is on the website of the APM about the different syllables. You can see some examples of past exams and information about the qualification. But I have some of that in the next slides. So the course objectives is to introduce you to the concepts and definitions of project management. And said APM follows what we call the body of knowledge, and this is like a kind of handbook that we have all the terms and the different concepts, and it's what their exams and our teaching is based on, and it's reviewed every few years, so it's not a static document. I think in the last few years the sustainability and the ethics are a concept that they are more prominent. Gives you an introduction, knowledge, and practical application of some key tools and techniques. Essentially, we all practice project management every day in our lives, but this is a more structured approach, how to get it right. To help understand how you can use these tools and techniques in your organization. And I'm pretty confident that most, if all of us, will have some examples of projects that they didn't go right. There is a pattern usually, and sometimes organizations, they gather the lessons learned, sometimes they do not. And of course, it prepares you from your examination. The next is the learning outcomes, what use the different sections that the specific qualification will cover. The first one, understanding project management and the operating environment. We looked at some of the terms. There is a little bit more information to contextualize this. Understanding project life cycles. It's, as we to link again with the terms, it's like a project, it's something that has a finite duration. So it's like at which stage we start, when do we finish, and when we do handover. Understanding the roles and responsibilities within projects. It's important to understand the roles of different members, what the project manager is responsible for, what the different stakeholder teams are responsible for. And stakeholders is not, you may have different stakeholders coming in and out at different stages of the project. Understanding project management planning. And if this is something that it's not properly done, then the rest of the project is on shaky ground. Understanding project scope management. It's like sometimes when it's a little bit academic, the example, when we do literature review on a certain keyword, we start diverting and going, including other terms. So it's like we miss the scope of what we're meant to do. So it's like trying to be focused. Understanding resource, scheduling, and optimization in a project. And scheduling, coordination with stakeholders or contractors, logistics, it's critical in a project. Understanding project risk and issue management in the context of a project. The quality in the context of a project. So one of my students is looking into quality management, how it's applied in major construction projects. And the findings are very interesting. People understand quality different ways. So it's about having this baseline know what is quality for the project, especially if you work with international teams or if you had experience working abroad. This perhaps will be more easy to understand. Understand communication in the context of a project. Allegedly, communication issues is the #1 failure for projects. It's a lot of research on that, and it's still happening. And last but not least, understand leadership and teamwork within a project. As we comparing earlier, what the project versus business as usual, what the project manager does and what the business manager does, they can be totally different things. Course format and material. We have our virtual learning environment. We were and hopefully will be able to offer face-to-face, but for the time being, everything is online. So there are slides and video recordings. And it's interesting because it's one of the project management team that you saw earlier. They've got a fantastic different accent. There are forum exercises in the virtual learning environment. There are mini quizzes after each topic, just to assess your understanding of what the slides were describing. There is a study guide, and there are weekly drop-in sessions with a tutor, so you are not left alone. But essentially, it is a self-study delivery, and that gives you a certain flexibility. Examination process, it's a multiple choice, 1 hour examination. Like we went through all of this presentation, you go through 15 hours of study, and it's all down to a multiple choice 1 hour examination. But trust me, they don't make it easy. 60 questions, pass mark is 60%, 1 mark per question, only 1 correct answer. All these instructions, of course, they will be there, invigilated or online proctored, and there are guidance notes on the APM website. Now it's perhaps the slides we're all waiting for. The cost and the funding available. You can see there that the cost, the usual cost is £465, and it requires approximately 50 hours of self-study. But there are different funding options. My colleagues from the CPD team will be able to give more information about that, but there is some information in the next slide. So you can see the different discount options in the link. I will explain the specific acronyms in the next one. So one funding option is the National Transition Training Fund. So this is an initiative by the Scottish Government to support people who have impact negatively work-wise from the pandemic. So it applies to the ones that made redundant since March 2020, and perhaps the ones that are threatened with redundancy, and also the ones who have graduated since March 2020 but did not manage to find a job. All applicants should be age 25 or over, and there is a registration fee. The other funding option is the UWS Upskilling Fund, and there is also a series of discounts for friends of UWS, I call them. So delegates or people that are interested in the course, but they're not eligible for what you mentioned earlier, and they're still resident in Scotland, there is a subsidy of £200 of the overall cost. So the UWS Upskilling Fund, it's a budget for delivering training for Scottish industry sectors, and it's moderated by the Scottish Funding Council. And last but not least, there is a 20% discount for UWS staff members, alumni, and things like students, alumni, and staff members. They said the colleagues from the CPD will be able to give more information about that. haven't timed me or rehearsed it, you can say that, you can tell that. So this is my part. I will mute my microphone so you'll stop listening to my stomach, but I'm ready to take any questions and I'll try to answer the best of my knowledge. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, sorry, hi, Reese here. Could I just ask a question regarding ongoing support? So regarding what you said, there's a weekly drop-in with a tutor. Would there ever be a tutor on hand to call, during working hours of kind of like 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, if you had any specific questions or queries that you had at that point, or would it be strictly only one session per week online?
I don't know how my colleagues do it, but I would say, because we're a part of the team, our emails, they're available there. So it's like we can email, you can get us through Microsoft Teams. We're here to help the people that, they take the course, whatever course is that, either a CPD or one of our masters. So, we're here for you. Don't worry about that. It doesn't mean we will get back to you immediately, but what I tell my students is like, usually it's between 24 and 48 hours.
I would add to that as well that the way the course is structured, it's on a virtual learning environment and there are discussion forums. Those are monitored a couple of times a day by staff members, normally members of my team. So if anyone's got any queries, we ensure that someone signposted to the right information, or we answer the question that you might have. It's quite a clear course, particularly at entry level. And the way that the drop-in sessions are planned to be structured from September is that they'll be thematic. So it would run in line with how the course is working. So that if you've got anything particular about those sessions, you might plan to not join everyone, but just join a couple. And we'll also be running live sessions on actually how you take the exam, how you prepare for the exam, how the exam's booked, because that's more of a technical understanding the process rather than the content itself. But we're certainly always on hand. Phone is harder when everyone's working remotely, but certainly there are lots of communication channels with.
Perfect. And sorry to be annoying, just one further question. So regarding kind of financial support, if, for instance, you were to pass this course and you wanted to follow up with a more advanced course later on, would there still be funding available for further on courses, or is it just for this one specifically?
So at the moment, there's no restriction on the number of courses that an individual can access funding for. That might change with the Scottish Funding Council next year, 2022-23. But at the moment, there's no restriction. We are planning to be running the project management qualification, which is the next one, from January. So we are anticipating that there will be funding available for that as well. We do also have funding available for quite a portfolio of other courses that may be related, but not directly in project management. So doing the PFQ with funding wouldn't necessarily eliminate you from accessing funding for follow-on courses.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
No worries. Are there any other questions from the audience at all? If not, I think my colleague Emma has put the information in the chat of how to read more about the course, and then our email address. We're always on hand to help with any questions that you might have. Evie also has the Masters in Project Management, and there'll be another enrolment in January. I think September is probably pretty full. But we welcome any questions from people that are looking at supported project management in other areas of work as well as just this specific course.
Hi, sorry to be annoying again. Is that directly for a master's in January?
There is a master's course running it. It's normally 2 intakes a year. I guess it depends on the number of applications there are. and that's a distance learning master's, but it's either full-time or part-time. But we can certainly get you information on that as well if that's a problem.
Okay, and just, sorry, how long does it take roughly to gain that qualification? I'm guessing that would be over a period of years,
Yes.
if you were either full-time or part-time, like maybe 2, 3, 4 years, something like that?
We are talking about the masters now, yes?
Yeah.
Distance learning, if people want to go down the distance learning route, which is what people usually do when they work full-time or they're not in the country, because we have people from Jamaica and France and Germany taking the courses. The distance learning gives you the flexibility to work around your capacity. So you can take one module per term, and for project management, it has a total of 7 modules, so it can take a few years. But if you want, you can take 2 modules or 3 modules. So it depends how fast or how slow you can go, and there is no restriction that if you start with one module, you have to continue with one. It's totally up to the student and the capacity they have. I usually advise students to start with one to see the requirements, because if somebody's been working for a while, getting back to academic life, sometimes it can be a little shock to the system. Mm-hmm. So start with one or perhaps 1.5, because some of the modules are a little bit smaller, and then assess how you feel you're doing, because we don't want anybody to struggle. It's a different student experience, but it's still a student experience. We don't want students overstressed, feeling that they're not catching up or they're always firefighting with their coursework.
Yeah, because I had quite a bad experience with a course I started just at the start of the year, and they said it was a master's equivalent, so it wasn't an MSc, but they kind of sold it as a master's equivalent. But when I looked into it, the qualifications really weren't meeting that standard at all. On top of that, it was costing me like £350 a month, and it just wasn't worth anywhere near that. Which was, I mean, that was almost the same charge as my mortgage every single month. And on top of that as well, there was no support there available whatsoever. So I just want to make sure that, I mean, I think everything that you're saying there is great as well, that the fact that this is an MSc and there is ongoing support available. Yeah. I would be very interested in that if that was the case, because it's not something I've had previously before.
The APM qualifications, they run on a different platform than our masters. So in our masters, we have drop-in sessions with the students every 2 weeks. So the sessions are there, and usually it's around 7 o'clock to accommodate for working life. And if the students can join, it's okay. If they cannot, that's totally up to them. We don't count attendance. But I said, because we have students from across the globe this year, and I'm not showing off, I was almost available 24/7, because I've been an international student, or I've been a postgrad student, so I know the stress of trying to catch up with coursework, trying to do too many other things. And then the way some of the courseworks work, sometimes you get answers from your peers, because some of the things that one student struggles, it's maybe something that somebody else has struggled before, and they know the answer. So for the MSc, it's slightly different arrangements for the distance learning students. But as I said, there is this flexibility there and support.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
If what I do, because sometimes I sound like I want to sell the masters, which is not the case. I'm saying is this: I suggest, I advise students, or students that have graduated, to talk to people that are interested on the project, from the distance learning or from the Paisley and London campus. So you get this information from somebody that in there done that, and you share their experience instead of me telling you, oh, we're wonderful. So if you're interested, or anybody else that's interested, we can arrange that. We have a very good relationship with the students that they have graduated. I see somebody put the question in the chat box if this is, oh, and Janet is answering there. I'll keep quiet.
So I saw that there's been a question in the chat about how this links to Prince2. And if anyone's familiar with Prince2, obviously it is a different pathway to qualification. Some would say that I guess the Prince2 maybe has a slightly more traditional approach. APM I think is a little bit more modern, although having done both, I think they're both very valuable. Prince2 is a much more intensive qualification for practitioners. The project fundamentals qualification is more of an entry level that would take you into the project management qualification, which is more of a level with Prince2. It's probably slightly above Prince2. So if you have Prince2, you might find that the project fundamentals isn't for you, but it's a much quicker route to understand the basics. To give an example, I mean, I studied for the PFQ in a week. We give 4 weeks access, and typically people would take 2 or 3 weeks. Actually, we suggest 4 weeks, but you can stay on for as long as you need to complete the course. It can be done in a few days of quite intensive study, compared to if you were going to study for the project management qualification or Prince2. Normally it's done over 1 or 2 weeks of intensive face-to-face study, so it's quite a different level, but equally quite a different price tag when it comes to obtaining the qualification. I mean, would you agree, Evie?
Yeah, actually, I don't know if correct me, Janet, or anybody else who has the expertise. Prince2 is something that you take, but then I think you have to have a refresher course to keep it up, and you have to use it. It's like a little bit like an ISO 9000 auditor. You pay the money, you get, but then if you don't use it, I think sometimes you lose it. The APM qualifications, they're there for life. It's like the slogan for pets. So this is perhaps something that, the sustainability of the qualifications you want to take.
Okay, I think we're maybe at the end of the session, more or less. If anyone does have any questions, please feel free to either drop them in the chat for next minute or so.
Sorry, before we go, I don't know if we answered Claire's questions about if there is an expectation to be working on a project, applying the learning from the PFQ as you go along. And I think this is, people that they will take the qualification, they will do it with, sorry, with the concept or the scope that you will apply that in your work environment. But the way the exams and the learning is, you don't need to do it. For example, I don't know if any of you did the Lean Six Sigma. There, if you go for the black belt on Lean Six Sigma, you have to work on a real project and apply what you're learning. That's not the case here. So whatever you don't have to provide evidence that like you apply that over there. You may have to do so in some parts for the masters, but not for the PFQM qualification. I think the last one, Janet, is for you, if you combine discounts.
Yes, I was going to say the answer is probably a bit more complicated, but please do get in touch, because the upskilling discount is only applicable to certain dates. It's according to when we've got the funding. The NTTF is applicable for the whole programme, but if you get in touch with your specific circumstances, Jamie, we can work out what would be the best kind of discount or subsidy approach for you and make sure that you get a good deal. Okay, right, well, thank you very much, Evie. Really appreciate your expertise as always. I hope everyone's found it useful. Thank you to my colleague Emma for letting me basically take over her chairing of the session. This is a subject that I'm very passionate about, and this is a course that we're really, really proud of. We are the only university in Scotland that's currently offering an online PFQ, and we're really proud of the quality of the course that we produced. So it would be lovely if some of you would come and join us. And if you have any questions in the meantime, then please get in touch.
Thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
Bye.
Very much for kind information.